Hey, what's up everybody? BDO44 coming at you another video. Alright, figured I'd wing it. Basketball time. Alright, so last night the Lakers played the Utah Jazz. What did I learn? That the Utah Jazz are a team that has about as wide a margin as it pertains to what you can expect for them to do as any team in the league. I would not be surprised to see the Utah Jazz in the Western Conference Finals. I would not be surprised to see the Utah Jazz get the first overall pick in the draft. They are that all over the place. And the reason being is because while they have one of the deepest teams in the league, they also have players that could be traded at any moment. Markkanen, who could be hurt in any moment. Sexton, who could be hurt in any moment. A lot of the guys that they picked up along the way are just playing well and are healthy at the same time. But they never really intended for these players to actually come together to be anything. And yet, in the event right now that you're seeing, they are playing like they did last year at the beginning of the season, which is one of the best, if not the best, in offense and all of basketball. And the depth that they have is immeasurable, because not only did they have their own assets, but they got basically most of Minnesota's assets in the Rudy Gobert trade. So now you're looking at a team that basically has two teams worth of assets. Like, quite literally. Two teams worth of assets. So all the players that they got, all of the picks that they got, could put them in a position to make a trade for any big superstar you can think of. Anybody you can think of, they can get. They got all the assets in the world. Because at the end of the day, when you consider what they are, they're a team with two sets of assets. They got their own, and then they got Minnesota. So now, when you move forward and consider what the Utah Jazz are going to be, just like kind of the New York Knicks in a way, they have their own players, and then they have draft picks that can reset their situation or bring them a big superstar at any moment. And so that's what I see in the Utah Jazz. A team that, if they make the right trade, could win a championship. A team that could go back and get Donovan Mitchell if they want to bring it back to their situation with the picks that they have and not lose anything they really need to keep winning. A team that could help any team in the NBA get out of their financial situation. A team that can help any team in the NBA get out of their pick deficit situation. They are a surplus of the highest order, just like OKC, just like the New York Knicks right now. Now, OKC, I see the same thing, but only OKC is a little further along the way in the development of what it is they're trying to be. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP candidate, and the picks that they've picked up over the last several years have all struck it rich. You know, Holmgren's fantastic. Jalen Williams is fantastic. Look like Cason Wallace is going to be good. Giddey's been extremely good. So they've just struck it rich in every single path you would want to. And they still got picks from here to Texas over the next several years. And I think they love the flexibility. You know, that's the good thing about the Jazz and OKC. They have the flexibility to be comfortable because they are having probably trouble getting free agents in those markets. In general, they don't have to worry about that aspect of the game as much, to say that anybody that wants to choose us is going to have a surplus of flexibility to make changes, a surplus of young talent coming in every year, the ability to play with good talent at all times. So they're likely to be more attractive to a player that wants to just kind of get a bag somewhere. You can get your bag with OKC or the Utah Jazz and find yourself with so much talent at all times because of what they can put together and what they already have in place. So, you know, this is what it's about, especially OKC, even more so than the Jazz, because OKC's been more or less gathering picks for years and years and years. They've been putting together, you know, Sam Presti's been hoarding picks from all over the league. And now he's in a very, very strong position from which to do whatever he wants with those picks. Now, he can't keep them all forever. That's the problem. It gets to a point where you have too many roster spots. You have too much from which to work around. You know, I think there's a date on which you can have so many picks or something like that. There's some type of a monkey wrench in the way of just continuing to hoard picks. There's a maximum of some sort. So he does have that in the way. But just the same, he can make any deal he wants to make. Any deal he wants to make. If he wants to bring OKC a super team right now, he can do that. If he wants to trade for the first pick in the draft, for some reason he likes some prospect and another team has him, he can give him an offer they can't refuse. You know, these are the type of things that Utah and OKC has right now. And you just got to love that for their teams, especially since they have those hard times in those small markets getting people to come. It's not like Miami or LA. You know, you can't get people to these places necessarily. But, you know, from what I've seen, both of these teams are in a position to, with the right decisions, whether it be to make moves or not, they're in a firm position to be a champion soon. Both of them. Both of them within the next 7-8 years, they should both be able to get themselves into a position to be real contenders if they're not already that right now, specifically OKC, who may already be there. So this is what I'm saying to you guys, man. Keep an eye open for OKC. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander already turned into one of the best players in the world. Chet Holmgren will be well on his way to being that. Will, J-Dub, anybody else they can find with the last name Williams, all those players are playing great. And I don't know that they're in any position of weakness at all, either of these teams. You just got to love where they're at. The only thing they're missing is Larry O'Brien. That's it. You know, because they definitely got everything they need to put together what should be able to win it. You know what I mean? So that is a great position to be in, and I think most teams want to be in those teams' positions, especially if you don't have the market. I think teams like Milwaukee need to consider trying to put themselves in that position around Giannis. It could be a little difficult because he needs to win right now. But when Giannis does finally retire or choose to go to the Knicks or something like that, you want to kind of be in a position OKC is. You kind of want to be on a fast track to where these teams are headed. You know, I say the same thing about a team like Miami. It's time to start thinking about bringing in draft picks. Obviously, you love the Jaime Jaquez pickup. That's a big one for him. Jovic is well on his way to being somebody, so I like where that's headed. You know, they're not in a bad space at all, Miami, necessarily, because you find yourself in the Eastern Conference Finals even with lesser talent. But what you want to do is try to put yourself in a position to have more talent so that your teams can have a bit more cushion and flexibility to make trades. I think that's the problem that Miami's run into. They need what OKC and Utah has so they can get themselves the players that want to play for their teams. You know, that's really what it's about. It's like, I have the market, but do I have the money, or is it wrapped up in the wrong players? Do I have the picks and the draft, the trade equity to kind of go get myself a guy who wants to demand to be here? That's where Miami has really hurt themselves. They got to get better in those areas. And so, you know, that's on Pat Riley to try to take a page out of Danny Ainge's book and out of Sam Presti's book and try to get themselves more picks and more tradable players, you know, so that they can have the trade equity necessary to make the big move next time somebody demands to be there. You know, I look at the Clippers, same thing. I don't know that they didn't pick up a bunch of players who are Hall of Famers right now, but are probably all going to age in their uniform. You ain't going to be able to trade James Harden for what you got him for. You're not going to probably trade Kawhi Leonard at all. You ain't going to trade Paul George at all. Russell Westbrook was barely worth anything when you got him. So it's like, yeah, they're playing well. Yeah, they got Hall of Famers, but how long do you expect them to play this way? And how long do you think you're going to get this out of them? Until it gets to a point where it's like, okay, our team is not as good, and now I want to reset. Do you have the tradable assets to give you that for which would otherwise be a rebuild? So, you know, I look at my Los Angeles Lakers, you definitely need to be thinking this way as well. We found that a lot of what it is that we have is losing value on our team because we can't get it all to come together to make any sense. Sort of like Detroit, but in a much worse way. Got the pieces, and if you send them all to where they're best at, you'll see those other teams that they go to bring their value up. But as far as them being on our team, coming together, relying upon each other, it's not what we're seeing. It's not looking that great. So as a person who really appreciates my team, specifically the Lakers and the NBA as a whole, I really want to see teams get a lot better at valuing what they have and not letting it go by the wayside as it pertains to letting players lose value based on how they're being utilized on your squad. If you got a piece that doesn't fit, I don't care how good you believe he is in an isolated space. If you have him and he doesn't look good, you're just drawing his value down. And unless you're going to build something that he fits in, you just have a piece that's going to be losing value by the season. And so that's the concern with some of the players the Lakers have. Can you ever give Rui Hachimura the minutes he's supposed to have? Can you ever put Austin Reeves in a situation where he's not a complete defensive liability? You know, can you utilize Cam Reddish the right way? Can you utilize Vanderbilt the right way? These are pieces that if you turn them into what they're supposed to be, you can get double for what they're worth for them when you get them ready to trade them. But in the event you don't do that, and you just can continue to allow them to move the way that they've been moving, you are going to find yourself having lesser value pieces, and you're going to end up trading them for half of what they're worth. When it is time to get rid of them, you just don't want to be in that situation. So, you know, that's really what it is, man. I think a team like Charlotte should probably be looking to move some of those pieces they got for that exact reason. Now you got valuable pieces that people would otherwise want. Your Nick Smiths, you know, I look at it like this. If CP3 can get traded, there should be no reason that Gordon Hayward can't be moved. Now, I firmly believe that Gordon Hayward should be kept in Charlotte if I'm the rest of the league, and just let that play itself out. Maybe they have to waive it, his contract. Maybe they just let him stay on the team for the rest of the year and let him walk for nothing. But I'm not spending his $30 million salary on him. But when I look at how the market treated Chris Paul last year, and basically he went for Jordan Poole, a young NBA champion, in that market space, you may be able to defy what I consider to be straight up logic and be able to find a team that would be willing to trade for that piece. You know what I mean? It's defying logic in the sense that I can get CP3 for $2-3 million if I just let the Washington Wizards waive him instead of trading Jordan Poole for him. I can have him come to my team outright when they realize they can't get a trade for him. You know what I'm saying? They're going to just have to stretch the contract or waive the contract. That should be the same way the market plays Gordon Hayward. But it may not. And because of it, if I'm the Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to look to trade that before I look to waive it, obviously. I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe something lucky happens, and I can, too, do what the Washington Wizards did. But at the end of the day, you don't have necessarily a logical market. What you have is a bunch of desperate teams that are looking to get better. And if they think Gordon Hayward can help them in the second half of the season, they may not care about $30 million paying him. They may not see the fruit in not doing that. You know what I mean? They may be willing. So, for me, I'm thinking, give the market a chance. That's the era we're in right now. Give the market a chance. Something that shouldn't go may go. You know, Marvin Bagley just went for 2 second-round picks. Is Marvin Bagley worth 2 second-round picks? Not in my mind. Based on what he's shown me and based on the fact that he's still on for another year at $12 million, for which he ain't worth half of that based on what he's shown. But if the market wants to take a chance on him, or I find a desperate enough team or a stupid enough team that'll be willing to do that, then voila. The market was kind to me. I was able to get something out of the situation I needed. The GM was stupid, and I took advantage of it, or however else you wanted to find that. At the end of the day, it worked in my favor, and I didn't have to do what otherwise looks like it needs to be done. I don't have to do it. And so that's what really ends up coming about in situations like that. You end up with a team that's a lot better than you were expecting your team to be. Not necessarily for any other reason than you found a patsy. You found somebody who would be willing to do for you what otherwise, in theory, should not be done. Because a lot of people who are in the marketplace don't always follow the rules. Don't always know how to. Don't always even know what the rules are. So that works in your favor. As somebody who's looking to build your team, you got to look around and give the marketplace a chance. That's what the new wisdom is in my mind. Give the marketplace a chance. Maybe you find that you can get something that doesn't make no damn sense at all. Maybe you find that you can get something out of a situation that ain't even realistic at all. And considering it, you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to move an expiring contract, and that expiring contract's $47 million. Maybe you can get 4 and 5 pieces like the Lakers did last year. Now, normally, you probably ain't going to be able to do that. But maybe, just maybe the market will be kind to you for whatever set of reasons. Now, it probably does help to have clutch behind you. It probably does help to have certain teams in your situation that are aligned with certain management companies that can put them in a position to put pressure on other teams to do business for you. And maybe within that space, the market could be kind to you as well. This is why people want to remain cool with, different management teams and different agencies, because they can help provide you leverage that otherwise isn't there to make it so that other teams will want to do business with you in such a weird way that ultimately may trickle down to them 3 years from now having something go right for them. Scratch my back, I scratch yours, get me out this hole, I get you out of mine, get you out of yours later, that type of thing. And so these are politic games, that are often played that really help teams out. So that what you see at face value ain't really what's in front of you, because at the end of the day, maybe I got a friend who can help me gain a friend who will help me out of a bad situation, and I'll be willing later on. That's how you get out of holes. So, this is the same type of thing that we're talking about in regards to DeJounte Murray being connected to Clutch. The Atlanta Hawks may be inclined to move DeJounte to the Lakers instead of the Knicks, because I guess the Knicks are pointed in the wrong direction in regards to doing business with Clutch, based on some other stuff that's going on behind the scenes that I've been getting a whiff of with the Knicks management maybe having a rift with Clutch representatives, that kind of thing. If any of that's true, then maybe the Knicks are probably not in a position, even with a better trade package, to get a DeJounte Murray than the Lakers, because the Lakers got LeBron James over here, and we know what his relationship with Clutch is. So it's likely you're more than likely willing to take a lesser package from the Lakers than a better package from the Knicks, if for some reason you're going to mess up that relationship by taking that Knicks package. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of what ends up being the theme that you have to consider when you're assessing the market, the unseen relationships that can otherwise make it so that a team would take less for more, and then later on maybe see themselves in a position they receive a favor. So that type of stuff, it's hard to read. It's impossible to read the market. And that's why I tell people, just give the market a chance when you're assessing. This is what I've learned over the last 6 months to a year. You got to give the market a chance. Sometimes things don't look as they seem because people will give somebody a favor, And so Marvin Bagley's $12 million contract, $12.5 million contract that's on for another year and a half, may go for 2 second-round picks. And then logically, ain't nobody going to want to pay Marvin Bagley that based on what he's shown. But realistically, you may be able to pull that off just the same, because hey, if I do business with this team right now, maybe tomorrow they'll do business with me when I need them, or maybe we can insert them into a third team situation 2 years from now to get a superstar, as to which nobody else is going to help us get that star. This is how you make friends in the NBA. It's how you get yourself in a position of strength where otherwise you may not have the assets. And so I look at teams like Miami, the Clippers. They need to be in positions to be that team that maybe will help somebody so that they can get the help later on, because you're already in an advantage with your marketing, with your location. You got LA, Miami to your advantage. So what you now need is somebody to take your less for more, or be willing to do a deal with you tomorrow, so that you can put yourself in the strongest position to have what you need when it's time to pick up somebody like a Kevin Durant again. When it's time for Luka Doncic to become a free agent, you'll have this team and that team already needing to return a favor to you for doing for them. So these are the type of things I'd be thinking about if I don't have my picks. If I don't have the greatest asset class right now, but I do have the fantastic market that may come with being able to be successful. You want more friends who will help you navigate through a market that is not friendly to what you own. And maybe you get lucky along the way. Maybe you draft a second-round pick, you turn into a free agent of the highest order. Maybe you turn into a great player or something. It happens. And then all of a sudden, your position of weakness turns into a position of strength. Just the same goes for teams with a lot of picks. Maybe all your picks turn into crap. Maybe you just strike out on every pick you have. All your players just bust out, whatever. You could take a situation that looks like it's in your favor, turn it into something that looks terrible to you. There's no perfect science to any of this. But what we do know is, if you're in a position where you have a lot of picks before those picks are drafted, as we said in the previous video, you may definitely find yourself in a position to move those picks for what may. Because picks can vary in value. Even if they're not very good picks, swaps and things of that nature, you find the right trade partner and you could do great things with those picks. Picks in my mind, are not just representatives of players. They are literally currency. Currency. That's what picks are, currency. That's why I'm not so quick to give away picks for players, especially if I don't think I can trade those same players for picks. A currency, fam. As to where that player's, his value is determined on whether or not he's performing. And the situation you put him in will determine how well he's potentially perform. You don't have that problem with no picks. So if you're giving away picks from 2029 to bring in a player who may gain or lose value on your team, you know you're giving away some certain value for uncertain value. That's why I'm hesitant to make any moves as a Laker fan that involves that 29 pick. I don't really want to trade that 29 pick at all. Just for the simple fact that we've been trading so many picks up until this point, and that's why we don't have the trade packages to kind of get some of the stuff that we want. You know, in a competitive world, we got to use our relationship with Clutch and our benefit to try to get those packages. That's not what you want. What you want is to be able to have the greatest trade pieces to trade for whoever you want. And in the event that you're able to do that, then with your relationship with Clutch, you're really putting other teams behind the eight ball. And nobody can get what it is that you want. And I see the New York Knicks putting themselves in that position now with all these picks that they have, coupled with the New York market. They're about to be in a position of real strength if they don't mess it up. Because now they got not only the market, but they got picks that they otherwise were ready to mortgage away for Donovan Mitchell. But since they didn't, are in a position to do even greater things than that. If they recognize and identify that that's the position they're in. A lot of times teams are so quick to throw away picks because they don't understand this currency. They don't understand that's the position they're in. They don't understand that if you really legitimately put yourself in a position to more or less have those players and those draft picks that everybody wants, you ain't got to worry about getting your guy. You don't have to worry about overpaying to get your guy, because you're going to be in position of leverage from which to negotiate based on the fact that you have so much and are not desperate. Guys get taxed for being desperate in the NBA. The market will tax you for not having and trying to want so much. So you end up giving away something you desperately don't want to get rid of to get back something you want, just because you don't have enough currency in your pocket from which to negotiate. You know, patsies get taken advantage of. So it's like, that's all the more reason why not to mortgage your picks. That's all the more reason why not to mortgage away your future, because it will help you in negotiations keep it together. You know, the less you have to negotiate with. The more you have, the more you can afford to tell others, I don't have to do this with you, whatever it may be. You know, it's just like any other situation. The more you can invest, the more you gain. The less you invest, the less you gain. You're going to, buy $5 worth of stock. Don't expect to get $5 million in profit. But if you invest $50 million, you can maybe see yourself getting that type of profit. You know what I mean? It's like, it takes more to make more. And the NBA market is exactly that. It is exactly that. Your leverage is based on what you have and your desperation within that. If everybody's playing well, everybody wants what you have. If you have a bunch of picks, everybody wants to call you before they call the next guy to see if you want to do a deal involving those picks. And you could tell that same guy, go find a better deal before I give you anything. And then he has to go around and fleece everybody else, try to find a deal that'll match the deal that he really wants from you because you got everything. It's like, yo, that is the position OKC's in. That's the position Utah's in. That's the position the Knicks are in. Because they got all those picks. All of their players are clicking on the right cylinder, and then you look up and you realize you don't want to do no deal because everybody's playing well, you know? So, like, these are the type of things that we just say, yo, build your flexibility, NBA. Don't mortgage your flexibility for some random year. Every year your fan base is going to want something. Every year your fan base is going to want to get better. Every year your superstar is going to want another set of good players if for some reason the ones he got ain't playing well. And if you don't have that leverage from which to negotiate, you can't bring him when he wants and you ultimately lose him too. If you got an aging superstar and you can get 8 picks for this guy and you don't have nothing else but him, consider what it is we're talking about here. Because it might be in your best interest to move him for that flexibility. And then you reset your situation from a position of strength. And your next era has you in a position to be that team that has everything. But if you let that guy walk, like literally walk, if you let him just dissipate into nothingness, then how do you expect to ever find yourself in a position of strength? You're just going to find yourself in no man's land looking for another superstar. While teams that did this will be in the position that you want to be in. So like this is what we're telling the NBA. Everybody needs to value flexibility. No one needs to think that this year is the last year. Like if we don't get a championship this year, it's all over. No, next year's coming around either way. Whether you win that championship or not, this year, whether you get that team that makes this superstar happy or not, this year, you best believe you're going to be responsible for doing the same damn thing next year, the year after that, the year after that, the year after that, no matter what you do. And the more success you have, the more success you're expected to provide. Now you start setting a standard for winning. You know, I've been listening to people talk about why didn't the Lakers keep the 2020 championship? Because most of those role players were on their last leg. Just because we won the championship don't mean that any of those role players were ready to play yet another season. None of them, most of them weren't. You start breaking down that team, you start realizing who was on that team. Man, that team was done. They won the championship in the bubble, but them dudes didn't have another season in them. And I think that's where people get lost on in regards to that championship team. Look who was on it. They had no stars on that team but Bron and AD. Everybody else was like in their late 30s or mid 30s. So it's like, how we going to keep that team, expect for them to be successful the next year, when the next year, them dudes is going to be washed. And so that's why the Lakers didn't keep their team. They had to make moves to make their team younger because everybody was old. And the core was old. You know what I mean? Maybe they had Caruso, yes. They had KCP, yes. Outside of them four, everybody else is in a position to retire before the season started. Avery Bradley before the season started. Markieff Morris before the season started was old. You know what I'm saying? Who else was on that damn team, man? It was a bunch of old dudes. Yeah, you had THT, but even now THT's having a hard time getting in rotation. So it's like that team was going to fall apart regardless. For those who are wondering why the Lakers didn't keep that 2020 team, it's because that was literally the last year any of them dudes had left. Any of them, really. And so I never questioned why the Lakers just broke up that 2020 team. They didn't. Father Time did. And it was incumbent upon the Lakers making good decisions to keep their team going. And they found things that they could get at a discount. But unfortunately, those things didn't mesh well with the core. And so it ended up going left. The biggest mistake my Lakers made was trying to put Russell Westbrook on the team. Trying to capitulate to superstar pressure to have another star that didn't fit at an exorbitant amount that shouldn't have been received, giving up a package that should not have been traded. It was a terrible trade on all fronts. When you talk about the value of a contract, Russell Westbrook's contract was awful. And you gave up a package that was valued really high, with upside pieces like KCP, who ended up going to another team and winning the championship. Kyle Kuzma, who's now playing like all-star. You know what I mean? And picks, first-round picks that didn't even need to be thrown in based on the value of Russell Westbrook's contract and his age and what his expectations were as a Laker. But because he was coming off a good season with the Washington Wizards, they were able to put him at such a high level despite his contract being so very bad. Knowing that if you just looked at what the pieces were on that Laker team, you knew damn well that he wasn't going to play like he did with the Wizards with the Lakers because he had to put the ball in Bron's hands. Bringing to you something that you couldn't showcase the way that the team that you traded for him with was able to. Which is a bad decision on all fronts. They should not have had to give away half of what they gave away. Certainly no draft equity based on the expectations of what the player was going to do in their uniform. And the absorbent amount of his contract from year to year to year was too much. It should not have been given up for that much. And so that was a terrible decision that set the Lakers back many, many seasons. And we haven't recovered from that as of yet. I hate to tell people, but that's the truth. We ain't recovered from that trade yet. Yeah, we were able to trade Russell Westbrook for some pieces, but not nearly the type of pieces that ultimately we gave up. And so when you look at that situation, you say, okay, well, that's why the Lakers aren't good enough now, because they're still relying upon certain players to play above themselves in order for them to reach the level they're supposed to be at, when it's just a mismanagement of assets that started that process. You see what I'm saying? You're asking Austin Reeves to be further along in his career so he can be better than he is. Rui has to be better than he is. Vando has to be better than he is. All of that is in place because you didn't have talent represented in the equity that ultimately went out coming back with that Westbrook trade. Those guys should have different roles because there should be better players ahead of them eating up a certain amount of the cap. Or draft picks that should be able to be tradable to make your team better in the event that your team wasn't good enough as it ultimately ain't. This is why we suck. Mismanagement of assets. You know, so it's like we need Austin to be better. No, you don't. Austin's in year 3. He's an undrafted player in year 3. He's not going to be better than he is. Give it 2 years, he'll be who you need him to be this year. Unfortunately, you need him to be that right now. So you want to trade him for and a bunch of other stuff to try to bring back somebody who's at that level. Well, guess what? More is probably likely going out than what's coming back. Why? Because what you have is not playing that great, so it's not going to go for the amount that otherwise it would be if it were. Or you don't have the picks from which to be in a position of strength in negotiations. So people will be like, well, I mean, I can do a deal with you, but I can also go over there and do a deal with them and get more back. So give me what you got that's not playing as well, and give me that thing that you desperately don't want to give up. Or I could just go over there and do the deal with them. This is what the Lakers are finding out for the DeJounte Murray. So you have to settle for a Zach LaVine, who's another Westbrook. A contract that's worth twice of what he's going to be making. It's going to cost you to get rid of. That you likely, you know what I mean? Maybe you don't overpay for it this time, but nevertheless, you're still not bringing back nothing valuable. So the Lakers got to find a way to make their assets make more sense. You can't just keep sending out valuable stuff and bringing back invaluable stuff and then making it look worse on your team so it to further use value. It doesn't work. You got to make sure that you are using your assets properly. And as it pertains to my team, they have yet to recover from sending out Kuzma, KCP, whatever else was attached to that along with those picks. We ain't recovered from that yet. I think it was Markieff Morris. We haven't recovered from that. We can say whatever we want about the Lakers guys not performing, but at the end of the day, they're performing based on the level they're supposed to be. Based on them being young guys, you need Max Christie to be better than he is. Disappointed in him? Why? He's in year 2, undrafted player. He's actually playing above what you drafted him to be when you consider it. Actually, he was a second rounder, but you get the point. He wasn't even supposed to be this good. And now you need him to do more because you don't have that representing other players. It's just, these are the mistakes the team make, man. And then they want to put the pressure on the coach, want to put pressure on the players. It ain't nobody's fault but the GM mismanaging the assets and the owner for signing off on such. And that's all it ever is in these situations most of the time. So this is what I'm saying to all of y'all, man. The Lakers got to find themselves in a position to not make that same mistake again with their assets, just trying to keep making up for mistakes that have already been made. Best thing for you to do is probably, honestly, either get the best deal you can get or absolutely nothing at all, so that you can keep putting yourself in a position to let the value of what you have continue to increase on your team as you continue to try to make it work together to some cohesive unit. And you keep trading pieces, saying, okay, we need this piece to be, and they're never getting used to one another, and thus never developing into what they need to. You put them in position, play them in position, and then let them come together to turn into the value that ultimately is worth receiving for another team. Otherwise, you're just trading away worthless stuff only for it to get better somewhere else when they put it in better positions than you were able to. That's it. So that's what I teach on this channel, man. I'm not a capologist by any stretch of the imagination, but as it pertains to the basis of what value is worth to you, you got to make sure that you not only have something that's worth something to others, but that you can continue to maintain its value as it stays in your uniform. Otherwise, you're just going to be behind the 8 ball at all times, hoping to get lucky with something that you receive. And then you got to be able to identify when you have. We got lucky with Max Christie. We got lucky with Austin Reeves. But you may not get lucky otherwise with other players that you draft that late, asking them to do more and seeing if they can do anything at all. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes the dudes bust all the way out, and then you got a dead asset there, and you got to be able to make up for that by making good decisions elsewhere. Sometimes that's just what's going to happen. Play ain't going to turn to nothing. Looks like our 17th pick may not turn into anything at all. So would it have made sense to trade that pick? Maybe, or draft differently, or just wait on the pick till he turns into something. But as of right now, for what you are, which is someone who needs something right now, your pick needs to be able to be a player that can perform for you in this era. Not somebody you need to wait on 4 and 5 years. You need him to play well now. And so you draft with those things understood. And the Lakers did not. So now they got Jalen Hood-Schifino, who ain't going to be nothing this year, who can't be traded for nothing this year, who we have to wait on outside of our timeline. It's just just bad decision, man. Bad decisions. And so I've been talking to our GMs for a long time. They've been listening to me, I believe. I've seen some of the things that I've suggested in this channel come to pass with the Lakers. Getting younger players, valuing assets better, getting rid of stuff that has no values, putting more emphasis in player development and player evaluation mechanisms, or however that works. And hopefully they hear me here, man. Hopefully they hear me here, because you got to understand why you're bad. You're not bad because the players have underachieved. You're bad because you've asked the players to overachieve and they haven't been able to. It's the God's honest truth. And in the event you don't understand that, you're going to keep making the same mistakes, and your players are not going to get any better. And you're still going to have LeBron and AD to try to figure out how to keep around them, or to keep them in positions to keep their timeline making sense. I do believe that if this continues to fail for another year or two, you probably should just reset. You probably should just reset and do what we said in the first half of this video, just putting yourself in a position to have the assets that you can trade based on whatever big trade you can make for AD and Bron. Then you can start this process over again with a much better asset class and much better opportunities of succeeding based on your negotiation power that will be developed in that process. So I hope people are listening, man. I know what needs to happen. Like I said, I'm not a capologist. I don't know the numbers. Numbers are not my thing. But when it comes to valuing assets and knowing what needs to go out and why something isn't worth what it should be, it's just not something to mistake, man. It's not just about numbers. You got to put pieces on the floor that make sense with one another. It can't just be, I got a talented guy, I got a talented guy, a talented guy. The talent got to come together to make some type of cohesive sense. Otherwise, you're Detroit 2023, 2024, or the New York Knicks when they put together 7 point guards that all were all-star level players and nothing else for their cap. For those of us who are old enough to remember that, the Stephon Marbury, Steve Francis, who else was on that dang team? It was like a bunch of all-star point guards. Like, it didn't make any sense at all. And then the rest of their team was trash, and they were mad that they had the worst team in the league. Of course you had the worst team in the league. You just put together a bunch of stuff. None of it actually fit. So that's what I'm saying to all of you guys, man. I hope people are paying attention. Hope they're watching what they're seeing and can see it manifest from within the games that we're watching. This player don't fit because he wasn't put on this team to fit. He was just put on the team to be a high-level guy that you can get in the draft. If you're not going to trade him at that value, you had better make what is around him fit, or he's going to lose that value. You ain't going to be able to trade him for nothing. So that's really what it is, man. I think I've gotten all of that out. You know, this is real advice. The NBA should take it. The whole league should take this advice, because the whole league seems to be making this mistake. Up and down the league, you see this mistake made all over the place. It needs to be understood. So that's pretty much what I got to say. My name is BDL44. Thank you all for watching. I'm out.